Hi, I'm Arron Oberholser, and I'm out here today at the beautiful Desert Forest Golf Club in their short game area, and we're comparing the xE1 wedge to the traditional wedge. I'm going to hit some shots for you with both and show you the difference between why you might be struggling a little bit with your traditional wedge here, as I have it here, and compared to the xE1 with its auto glide sole technology. So let's start with the traditional wedge, which is 60 degrees. And you can notice the narrow sole here, fairly flat, not a lot of bounce. I believe this has about 8 degrees of bounce on it, and it's what I would consider in conditions like this. It's a little bit soft, a little thin. I'd consider this, we call it a digger a little bit. So let's hit a few shots and see how it does, and then we'll compare it to the xE1 wedge. And this is from 55 yards. First one a little deep, but you can see the divot right here, how steep that divot was. And I tried to stay shallow with that shot, tried to stay very shallow with it, knowing that it's wet, knowing that it's easy to stick this type of a club and this bounce configuration into the ground. Tried to stay shallow with it, and it still went pretty deep. Let's try one more. Again, trying to stay very shallow with it, but still not quite getting the grab against the turf, and you can see how kind of deep the divot is right through this middle section of the divot. Now let's compare that to the xE1 with its auto glide sole technology, and this is our 65-degree model. So if you ever get tired of playing golf with it, you can always flip pancakes with it, because it'll go straight in the air. You'll hit the most beautiful flop shots you've ever seen. Do not have to open this wedge at all. 65 degrees, so we'll give it a shot with the 65 degrees. Got to hit it a little bit firmer because of the loft. All right, let's hit one more with the xE1 and see if we can even get it even closer than the first one I hit. With this shot, I see a lot of amateurs try to scoop the ball and try to get the ball up. We have the pins fairly close to the front of this green. So you need some loft to get it close to this hole location. And what I see amateurs do when they do that, I see them flip their hands or hang back and try to help the ball in the air. You don't need to try to help the ball in the air with a 65-degree wedge. The ball is automatically going to go in the air. You just have to make sure that you swing it hard enough with a 65-degree wedge. So set up to it, very square face. You don't need to open the blade. Narrow stance, fairly narrow stance. You want a little more weight on your left side, maybe 60-40. Hands slightly ahead at the ball. You don't want them in front of the ball. Ball position fairly neutral, I'd say, just above, just in front of middle with a stance like this, with a narrow stance like this. And then all you're going to do is make a miniature golf swing. Well, I'd say I'd keep both of those, but now let me show you guys the difference, what I'm talking about. When you see a divot like this, that's nice and shallow like the xE1 just created for me, versus the deeper ones that I've taken with a traditional wedge. When I hold the wedge up this way, you can see the difference. Look at how narrow the sole is on the traditional wedge versus the xE1 on my right, your left, okay, versus the traditional wedge. This, as you get the forward shaft lean, there's not enough mass there to help the club and enough bounce to help the club exit the turf or keep the club gliding along the top of the turf. Not true with the xE1. If you get a little forward shaft lean and having to hit it just a little bit fat, as wide as this sole is, it's gonna constantly fight against of wanting to dig, and it's going to stay on top of the grass at all times. It's going to want to constantly exit itself from the turf, which is going to make a lot of your shots, a lot of your misses or your fat shots end up in pretty good spots. So that's one of the many advantages of the xE1 sole. Let's hit some more, because I'm having a lot of fun hitting this xE1 wedge. It's kind of like cheating, I'll be honest with you. We'll play this one a little farther back in my stance, just for fun. Hands ahead. like I said, it's virtually impossible to hit this club fat. There is so, in fact, I'd say it is impossible to hit this club fat. You can feel a fat shot, but the days of sticking the club directly in the ground and the club literally staying there or actually bouncing back at you, those days are over with this club. This club won't do that, just the way it's designed and how big that heel is, how big the flange is on the bottom, and how long and how much weight and mass there is in the back here. It's going to consistently help you slide it through the turf to where your fat shots, the days of hitting fat shots off of thin, muddy, or wet lies, or tight lies, those days are over with the xE1 wedge.